Yeah. So there's a subtlety that happens that I think it was lost on me anyway until I read the book myself again this year and also watched the clips again. And it's subtle, but it's there, and I think Dickens is very purposeful in giving us this little nuance. It revolves around some questions here. First of all, as I said, we're really looking at the fruit of being conscious in Ebenezer Scrooge's life. This is a guy who's reborn, who's in touch with his core, with who he is, who he's supposed to be. But for me, it raises some questions for all of us, which I think was part of Dickens' point. And those questions are, what are the gifts that you give? What is the why behind your gifts? And what are you confessing with your gifts? If you actually read the book, and a lot of the film adaptations have this, when Scrooge goes to prove that he's a changed man, he has with his gift a confession of sorts. So in the first scene that you had, actually in the original text, the first persons he comes across are the two guys who are looking for charitable donations. You remember that scene? And that's where you hear him say, are there no workhouses? Are there no prisons for these children, these poor people to go into? And they retort, well, there are plenty, but people would rather die. And his attitude toward them as well, then they better die and decrease the surplus population. Remember that line? Just to give you a clear picture of how cold-hearted this guy is. Well, when he catches them on the street in London, on his way to Fred's house, we presume, he whispers in their ear this enormous sum that he is going to give. So enormous that these guys almost fall over. So there's evidence one of changed man. The guy is going to give a whopper gift of his resources. But that's not all that he gives. He also gives a confession. And he says to these guys, I know that my name may not be good to you, but I'm hoping to change that. And this gift I'm giving you is making up for many Christmases I've missed in the past. It's a confession, a recognition of where he's been and who he wants to be in relationship with them. Two people that are otherwise strangers. When he's with Fred, in the actual text of the actual book, it's phrased a little bit differently, but the intimation is the same thing that you saw. He comes, he shows up to accept the invitation to dinner from his nephew Fred, but he doesn't stop there. He goes to Fred's wife and basically says, I've been an idiot. Will you have me anyway? That's a confession, a way of saying, I'm here to give the gift of myself that you've asked, but I want you to know that I know who I've been, and this is who I want to be. It's a beautiful expression. And then finally, with Bob Cratchit, it's the same thing. While he is giving this raise, or at least promising a raise to Bob Cratchit, he is implying that he knows that he has not been fair. He has not treated him well. To go out and get more coal is significant because we know he was a tightwad when it came to his coal and how much money he would spend. There's a gift, but there's a confession with the gift. And I'm wondering, the gifts that you're going to give in these days, I wonder what confession you're making with the gift. Or is it just a gift? Is it just a tangible thing? The story could have ended where all we were left in one short paragraph is, Scrooge made a donation to the charitable guys. He showed up to dinner and he gave Bob Cratchit a raise. But you and I would not be moved or impressed by that at all. We're moved by it because we see a changed life. We see the heart behind the changed man, the heart that goes with the gift in the confession. I'm wondering, as you give gifts this year, would it be possible for you to add a confession to it, a statement of agreement about what you see as true, so that the gift that you choose to give is more than just a tangible gift, but actually has some of yourself? I'll have an example of that in a little bit. But it turns out this gift as confession is baked right into the Christmas story. How many of you set up a nativity scene at your house? How many of you know what a nativity scene is? Most of you? Okay, good. Most of the ones that you buy and you set up, we did this in my house, and it was always fun for me as a kid to set it up. And some of you, Linda Smetzer, I think you have like 1,000 nativity sets in your home, something like that, from all over the world, and really interesting, large and small. And I think we should all go over to Linda's house after church today and just see for ourselves. So anyway, usually when you set these things up, there's an anachronism at play. Because you have the manger, which we usually make it look like some kind of a ramshackle barn, which that's actually completely false. It was a cave. But anyway, we play along with it. And we have Mary and Joseph, and we stick Jesus in the little manger, the feeding trough for the animals. And then we usually have some barn animals in there. What do we have? A cow, maybe, a donkey, a sheep or something. And then there's some shepherds kind of somewhat looking on, right? What are we missing? The wise men, right. Well, that's where the anachronism shows up. Because in the actual story, it's highly unlikely that they actually showed up at that very time. And one of the nods that we have to that is in this infanticide that happens as part of the story, the king demands that all children 2 years and younger are slaughtered in Bethlehem as a means of trying to kill the Christ child. It's a very dark part of the story. So we need to talk about them, though, and since I'm not very liturgical anyway, let's go ahead and talk about it today. So let's talk about these wise men. And on the next slide, we get the beginning of their part of the story, and their gifts, as you'll see, are themselves confessions. So Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law and asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem in Judea," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah. For a ruler will come from you, who will be the shepherd for my people Israel." Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me, so that I can go and worship him too." After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. 3 gifts, each bearing its own confession. So gold is a gift that you give to a king. And so when they are giving this gift to this Christ child, this baby Jesus, they are making an announcement. They are confessing with their lips and with their behavior as they bow down that this child was born to be a king. And when they bring out the frankincense, all of these, by the way, are extremely expensive gifts that only royalty and very, very wealthy people can afford. And just to further complicate your nativity scenes, these 3 guys didn't travel, a month or 2 or so, just all by themselves. No, they had an entourage, if we just go with the story, that would have protected them along the way. So when they roll into Bethlehem, this just isn't 3 guys on a bunch of camels. This is like dozens of people who are making their way to this little cave. And people are coming out of their doors wondering what in the world is happening here. We haven't seen this kind of display of wealth ever. And here it's right at their doorsteps. It is making quite a scene. The second gift that he gives, that the wise men give, is frankincense. Frankincense that you would use in an act of worship, that you would light and burn, the smoke of which would extend into the heavens as a representation of our prayers, a sweet aroma, a sweet offering made to God. And when they give the gift of frankincense, it's as if they are confessing with their lips. And as they're bowing down, they are saying, we recognize you as one who is like a priest among us, who is going to help join us, God and people, together. And a good priest needs his frankincense. And then they pulled out the myrrh, which would be used for burial practices, which also was a confessional gift, a prophecy saying, we know you're going to need this. This is a part of the story for you. But also its own subtle communication. Not only are we being prophetic about one day you're going to need this at your own burial, but we're also saying you are a prophet of God as well. And unfortunately, most of the prophets of Israel up to that day were killed by Israel, were killed by the powers that be. And so it's this dark allusion to what is going to come for this Jesus. 3 gifts, 3 confessions. Later on, the church would think about Jesus in this framework. They would say, he is our prophet, our priest, and our king. 3 different functions coming out of everything he was and everything he taught. A deeply meaningful gift. As I think about the confluence of Ebenezer Scrooge and the Christmas story together, knowing that Dickens was writing from himself out of a memory of deep poverty, having been in a workhouse himself, having known that his father and mother and younger siblings were in a debtor's prison, recognizing that there was a social change that needed to happen, that they hadn't arrived yet in Victorian England, and something must be done, and knowing that his writing was going to go first and foremost to the people who could do something about it. Certainly that was part of his larger agenda, but at the same time, this idea of gifts, this idea of changed spirit, changed heart was not lost on him. This idea of having more than just the tangible, but truly being reborn was part of his hope as a sign for us, as a goal, as something to shoot for, as something to hope for. And I think it can happen for all of us. You know, sometimes the gifts that we give in and of themselves, like the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, carry volumes. And I had you share some stories earlier about some favorite Christmas gifts, and my guess is that those Christmas gifts all had a story behind them. Am I right? They weren't just something that came out, from Amazon or something, but they had meaning attached to them. I have my parents here, by the way. They were part of one of my cool Christmas gifts. Everybody say hi to my folks. There they are. So you're welcome to, they won't bite. You're welcome to meet with them and talk with them. They're very nice people. In fact, they're so nice that you may want to ask them questions like, so what happened to Peter? And maybe they'll have some clues for both of us. Hey, that would be great. But anyway, one of my cool Christmas gifts, I am a living example of the movie A Christmas Story actually happening. So all the Christmas gifts were opened, and my dad points out there's one kind of hidden in the corner by the piano that was in our living room. And I made my way over there, and what was it? I'm sure my mother did not know this was coming. Just like the movie, it was a BB gun. For all of my plinking and trying to shoot things, and trees and whatnot in Kansas. So that was a cool gift. Another cool one for me was I was just starting in trombone. That was my instrument as a kid too, and I played all the way into college with it. And as a lot of parents know to do, when a kid starts out on an instrument, you find the lousiest instrument you possibly can because they're cheap. And that way, if the kid doesn't take to the instrument, you're only out $20 or so, right? And so I had this lousy rental from the music store. The slide barely worked. I'm surprised I could do anything with this instrument. But on that particular Christmas, my dad and mom figured out a way. I don't think it was brand new, but it looked brand new to me, man. And I got this shiny brass trombone. I was so excited. It communicated a lot to me. One of the things it communicated to me was, well, they actually cared about me. How about that? And they were paying attention to what my needs were and wanted to be a part of that. They were meaningful gifts. in and of themselves. But you know, sometimes the gifts that we give are not just the tangible thing. And while there may be some tangible element to them, it's the heart behind the gift that actually communicates more. I remember many years ago, I can't remember if it was like my 10-year anniversary here, or maybe it was I turned 40, which was just last year, or it may have been finished up my doctorate, and there was a big banquet and stuff for that, which is super cool. But a member of the church that I deeply admired, still do to this day, she took time to write me a very, very thoughtful, creative letter. And she did something, I think, with an alphabet, or maybe not just the alphabet, but using letters of something or other, to communicate what she saw in me. And they were each one a value statement. And I cherish that. I have a folder of some of the things that I will keep forever. And that's one of them. Because it communicated to me this person saying, I love and respect you. And I'm not just writing that, before I sign my name in a card, but this is what I mean. And I'm wondering if we can add that kind of thing in light of what the Christmas story is about, bringing joy, bringing depth, bringing love to a new level. I wonder if we might be able to add that in to Christmas as we celebrate our gift giving. Recently, about a month ago, I received 2 individual gifts from my parents, and I want to share them with you now. They don't know that I'm doing this, so I'm hoping to embarrass them as they did me for so many years as pastors themselves in the church. So this was, I received this not just to me, but the first one was to myself and my brother and sisters, all of us. And this was a Thanksgiving letter from my mother that she emailed us. So she writes, I'd like to give you all a hug, but since that's not possible, I'm writing this note, which has been going through my mind several weeks daily. When I was finishing up 3rd grade, we moved to Marshalltown, Iowa from Lorain, Kansas. I remember Daddy said to Janice and I that this would be a new experience for us because the size of the town, which was much larger than what we were used to. Lorain, Kansas, was maybe 250, plus the farm people surrounding it, and the church was the center of the social life for us. My dad said that he and Mother had brought us up the way they thought was right, and that we would have decisions to make that we hadn't had to decide in Lorain. He wanted us to know that they loved us dearly and that they would always love us regardless of what decisions we made. He said that we were special because as preacher's kids, we mixed with all types of people, rich, poor, educated, non-educated, high society, not so high, etc. Even though I was 8 years, 335 days old at that time, but who's counting? That's such a mom thing to do for me. All right. I hung on to his words my whole life. In case you don't know it, I want you to know you will always have my love. I am so very thankful and proud of each of you. You have no idea how many people remark about how great our family has been, your successes, your values, and that you love the Lord and try to please Him. A huge thank you to you for who you are. I thank God daily for you. And she goes on to say, well, I could go on, but I know you have all faced difficult times this year as well, and have looked to God for strength and wisdom. In reading one of my devotionals this week, I read a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and the quote is, "For everything you have missed, you have gained something else," end quote. It's not what you have lost, but what you have left that counts. When we look at past losses, it provides an opportunity to recalibrate for future service. The Lord can leverage our losses for ministry. Don't give up. Your best years are now, and your best days are ahead. These last 5 sentences are quotes, but not from Emerson. I believe this to be true myself. I hope it will be helpful to you as well. Love you and have a thankful Thanksgiving. And then my dad, just a few days before that, separately, wrote just to me. Says, "Hi, Peter, thanks for sharing this transition with us. We are proud of you as a person of conviction and integrity among your many other stellar qualities. If you want to know what any of those might be, just ask him, because maybe you're wondering, like I do sometimes. As you noted, standing by our convictions can sometimes be costly, and God honors faithfulness. Stay strong, Peter, as you continue to be a person of integrity to the core. Our love and support will always be with you, and our pride in you is enhanced. Your resourcefulness and God's faithfulness will shape a worthwhile future. Since the day you were born, both Mom and I have prayed for you every single day, and that will always be there. And our prayers have included Len, Noah, and Lakin as the household grew. Know that our love and hugs would hold you each close if we were there. Have a great day tomorrow. Pass along our love and hugs, your grateful and proud parents, Dad and Mom. These are gifts. They're tangible in the sense that I read them on a computer and printed them on paper, but they are so much more than that tangible thing. These are cherished gifts. You know that these kinds of gifts are where the real gift resides. In light of what Christmas is about, it's more than just a baby being born. It's everything that's communicated in how and when and why this baby was born. For Ebenezer Scrooge, it was more than the fact that he became generous. It's the why behind it. It's the life change. It's the reborn thing that's happening in it and around it that made the story worth remembering and repeating year after year. And I'm wondering, as you're considering who you're giving your gifts to this year, how will you follow suit? How will you make it more than just a thing? How will you add your heart to the gift? Because, if anything, this gift of Christmas from God is an expression of God's heart to humanity, to say, in no uncertain terms, you are loved. Let's pray together. So God, at this season where we celebrate life and love and friends and family, by your Spirit, would you help us take it to a different space? Would you help us not settle for just the exchange of gifts, but could you remind us? Could you jog our memories? Could you help us with our words? Could you move our hearts? Could you help us swallow our pride? Could you help us forgive? Can you help us let go of grudges? Can you help us acknowledge pain, but also for the day, be bigger than the pain? Can you help us? Can you help us out of your love for us? Because that's what this story is all about. Out of your love for us, can you remind us again and again and again and again that we are deeply loved by you, and that is a foundation that will never crumble, no matter what we're going through? And off that foundation, God, can you help us grow and become more like the Jesus we celebrate? More free with our love, more capable to say what we need to say, more graceful than we might otherwise be. God, may Emmanuel be true today. May you truly be with us. And may it be known to be true because of the love that comes out of us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. So grateful for you to be here today. We hope to see you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. That concludes our service. If you have any feedback for us or any support of any kind, prayer concerns, please leave those in the bucket thingies at the table. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Thanks for coming.